We work together very well in government, and I respect you. I completely disagree, right? You can save up my... Okay. First of all, I'm not putting a time frame on this government. Let's get that one absolutely clear before we start. Second of all, it's sad it's too late for conventional...
I'm agreeing with that.
No,
you can see...
Yes, was our dodgy David Cameron really roasted on defence spending? Yes, get ready for Lord Houghton of Richmond in the International Relations and Defence Committee meeting on the 30th of April 2024, where he proper got stuck into our Dodgy Dave about defence spending.
One second, my notifiable interest is as a defence advisor to a company called Thales UK, which you may have heard of.
Very familiar with them.
Two questions, both on defence money. The second one, I'll touch on the very welcome Prime Ministerial announcement of last week, and I'll come to that second. First, though, can I ask you to be a bit reflective on perhaps the last 15 years? You, as many as any UK politician, will know the degree to which over 15 years we've disinvested to an extent in defence, and in doing so we've hung on to the sort of the glossy stuff, the totemic symbols of international authority, but we've hollowed out our conventional resilience and therefore reduced our deterrent posture.
Can I interrupt you there? Let's do the second question second. Although we work together very well in government, and I respect you, I completely disagree, right? The first thing is, when we got into government in 2010, you can save up my...
Okay, we're going to adjourn for hopefully less than 10 minutes.
Right. I'm not going to...
Yes, the dinner bell saved him, you could say. Well, it didn't take them long to get back at each other.
In 2010, the economy was in a very difficult situation. Forecast budget deficit 11% of GDP. There is no defence and security without economic security, and we made the choice to deal with the deficit, get the economy growing, and the results of that were very successful. And as part of that, we did make some difficult choices, very painful choices, to scrap Nimrod after all the years and the money and everything else, to have, several years of an aircraft carrier gap. We made choices. I can't tell you the agony for me of saying that the Sea Harriers had to go when I think of the amazing things they did in the Falklands. We made choices. The result of those choices, and the result of then a well-funded defence budget, always over 2% of GDP, means that during those 14 years, and I won't give you the full list, although I might, we have, therefore commissioned 2 aircraft carriers, the Type 23s, the Type 24s, the hunter-killer submarines. Think of the air transport. We've, the A400M, the new Chinook helicopters, the C-17s. Think about, not always the most successful procurements, but the mobility for and fighting ability for the army. Across all the services, a massive renewal programme because we sorted out the economy, we made difficult choices, and then we invested. I mean, look in yes.
Perhaps if I now.
Now you can come in. Yes,
the question is that I recognise all those difficult choices, and I was part of them. What I'm asking you is, on reflection, though, to accept the fact that the diminution of war-fighting resilience and therefore conventional deterrence is at least a part of the reason that Russia invaded firstly Crimea and then Ukraine. It was a failure of conventional deterrence in Europe.
No, because Putin invaded Ukraine in 2014 because he thought he could get away with it, because everyone was distracted by what had happened in Kyiv. And because Ukraine wasn't a member of NATO, it wouldn't have mattered how many weapons the rest of Europe had. That wasn't going to deter Putin. If Ukraine had been made a member of NATO, which I supported in 2008 when I was leader of the opposition, different story. So I don't accept that you can make all sorts of arguments why we should have spent more on defence, but the argument that had we spent more on defence, Putin wouldn't have played around in Ukraine in 2014 and invaded in 2022, not the case.
I'm surprised that you put such a low price on conventional deterrence when one of the main arguments...
I put a huge price on conventional deterrence.
...that is now declared
is
going to go on building back the resilience and conventional deterrence capability of NATO.
I'm a massive...
Move on to the...
No, believe me, I'm a huge fan of conventional deterrence. I absolutely believe it to my marrow. But the way deterrence needs to work is you have to have both the deterrence and the alliance to deliver it. And that's what NATO and our commitment to NATO is all about. The tragedy for Ukraine is it wasn't in NATO. And And I think Putin did what he did because in 2008, when he did effectively the same to Georgia, the Western response was so weak. And it was so weak, not in terms necessarily of military action. I don't think that would have been appropriate, but there were no consequences for Putin of his invasion.
Moving on to the second question, the most welcome uplift of however mathematically it was derived, and there is some, dare I say, some economic commentary to suggest it's a little bit of a managed figure, but I will accept 75 billion over the next 6 years. But there will be some somewhat cynical observers will say that it is a touch late on parade. Firstly, it's late on parade because, as everybody recognises, this is an absolutely critical year for Ukraine, during which actually what we are in the process of giving might not make it in time, but also in truth, only the 500 million package for Ukraine is the only thing that is the uplift to the defence budget over the next 12 months. So in truth, in the context of a 75 billion package, there is only 1/150th of it that is likely to be spent in the residual time frame of this government. Isn't that a little slow?
Well, first of all, I'm not putting a time frame on this government. Let's get that one absolutely clear before we start. Second of all, what the Prime Minister has said is that we are going to be spending 3 billion in Ukraine, right? If you add up the 500 and the 2.5, 3 billion this year, next year, and for as many years as is necessary. You shake your head, but I don't think everyone has noticed that, and it's very important they do. That is a multi-year commitment, and I would argue that actually that's the most important thing we can do. I'm coming back to your argument about conventional
500 million this year. Next year starts in 2025.
Yes, but so what he's announced is going from 2% to 2.5%, which I think is hugely welcome. And I'm amazed, given all the speeches you've given about it, you're not jumping up and down with excitement at 2.5%. This is a government that's actually delivering a really important pledge, which I think the opposition will have to match. And when it does, it'll be a vitally important moment. But when you're spending, 60, 70 billion pounds on defence, and you've got a crisis in Ukraine, one of the most important things you can do is think, what have I got in my locker that I can give to the Ukrainians to help them in the fight? And if anything, I would argue the other way to you and say we should try and do even more of thinking, what have we got in our locker that we can give them, because that's where the fight is. Yeah. It's sad it's too late for conventional...
I'm with that.
No, you can see the sort of discussions we had within government. They were always very robust, and I think it's important. Nick, I respect very much your views, but I do think this is a big
this goes
step.
Completely off rails. I know you've got to get on at some stage, and I'm going to move on, if that's all right, because we've been interrupted quite a lot.
So much going on there, wasn't there? Both going at it, hammer and tongs. Now, I did look up Lord Houghton of Richmond, as I wasn't sure if he was a Tory as well. Now, I get the feeling he's a bit of a crossbencher, but I could be wrong. But what I did find out was the fact that our Lord Houghton was educated at Woodhouse Grove School in my home city of Bradford, so small world, eh? But what do you guys think? Which Lord do you guys think was in the right? Lord Cameron or Lord Houghton? Let me know down below, and I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.